up, friends? Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you're having a great start to your week, but I have a feeling it's about to get even better because I am so excited for the conversation we're about to have. I also just have to mention, we just came off of our conference by the time this episode is airing, but we have pre-recorded this because our team is taking a little rest, taking a little break during the week after conference. And so pre-recording this with two very amazing people that you might recognize. You recognize Kaylee for sure. We have Kaylea Coates back on the podcast with her husband, Madison Coates. And I'm so excited to have you both on the podcast.
Thank you
for having us. This is so special, and you look so cute, girl.
Thank you, girl.
Thank you. We had to share what happened because it was kind of funny.
Yes.
Because what, did Madison say something about your vest?
Yeah, like I asked him about my outfit today, and he's like, yeah, it's good. But you know, like when your spouse says that, it's like, and I said, it's the vest. And he's like, yeah, I just don't know how I feel about the vest. And I said, well, Sadie would wear a vest. And then I walked in.
and I was wearing a vest, a black and white vest. And then I was like, okay, I'll change. I'll let you have your vest moment. Plus, I already recorded another podcast today in the vest. So I thought, let's just let that have its one moment. But I said the same thing the other day when I bought the vest. I said, to be honest, I think this is going to be an outfit I'll look back on and go, that didn't age well, but right now it's cute. So I'm doing it. So sometimes you just got to jump in the moment, Madison.
Right. You don't know if it's a summer outfit or a winter outfit.
Yeah, but that's the beauty. It's September when this is airing. So you're in that fall mix.
I'm in the in-between.
Yes, you're in the there's a word right here, right now for someone in the in-between, wear the vest.
Yep.
But no, seriously, I'm so grateful to have y'all on the podcast. Madison, people don't know you yet on this podcast because Kaylee's been on, shared a lot of her story. If you haven't listened to that one, go back. Kaylee's also who really got LO Worship started with me in a lot of ways. You and Steph have been there on the whole journey, which is so special to me. And so we can share a little of your story too. But Madison, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so I was raised in this area. I own a local business. We own a coffee shop. I was in ministry for several years, and we just decided that we wanted to have an impact community. So that's the season of our life right now, and trying to figure out how to navigate that. But yeah, we just love every minute of getting to serve the body. We serve in youth.
That's awesome. I have to say, just because you really are stepping into like this big podcast with all these lights and these cameras and stuff, and you mentioned you've never really done something like this before. That is something that like so many of our friends have stepped into doing, like doing this podcast. And I have to say, I'll tell y'all a story about Lydia, and this will encourage y'all. And for those listening, this was just such a cool story I heard yesterday. And I'll probably share this on the podcast a lot because it was just so significant to me, because this past year we really started having more friends on the podcast, which every friend of mine who comes in here is like, this feels so intimidating. And then we have such a good conversation. Well, Lydia shared her story. She shared about her college years and how wild they were. And then how, during that time she went to Passion, and it was through Passion that God really impacted her and changed her life. So anyways, she tells that story. Someone from South Dakota is listening to this podcast, hears the story, who's living a wild college life and goes, maybe I should go to Passion because that's what this girl did.
Wow.
So goes to Passion, gives her life to the Lord at Passion, totally like changed and moved.
No way.
Well, this story gets so crazy. So from listening to the podcast, Lydia shared that she started working at FCA. So the girl gets involved with FCA because she is a college athlete. And so gets involved with FCA. She then just starts feeling called to like do missions. So finds out that FCA is sending a group of people to South Africa, which actually they were sending people to all over. She chose South Africa, goes to South Africa. Of all people, there was a group from Louisiana, which happens to be Lydia's FCA group. Lydia wasn't there, but they went to South Africa. They meet this girl through just like series of like telling stories. She was like, oh, are you from where Lydia Dozier Walker's from? Because I listened to this podcast. Well, that's good. And she was on it and like put the pieces together. So she sends a video sharing this story to Lydia. Okay, that was the beginning of the summer. Then this past week, Lydia is leading FCA camp. This girl from South Dakota is there.
No.
Tells her whole testimony, and then Lydia baptizes her.
Wow.
Yes.
What?
Okay, like it's insane. It's literally insane. So I got that video yesterday and saw that and was just like, what? So this girl listened to this podcast a year ago and just heard someone's story that was like, that's my story. And then just found Jesus in the same way. It's just like, okay, if Jesus could work through Lydia in that way, maybe he could work through me in that way. Maybe he could use me. And I think that's the beauty of like bringing people like y'all on the podcast who are just like live in the day-to-day life. Like you own a coffee shop, you do ministry together, you are the youth pastor, and y'all do so many other things too. Like you do LO worship, you have all these other things, but like y'all are in the day-to-day, like just the weeds of life so many times, the ins and the outs. We were talking about this, we'll talk about this later, like the cups for the coffee shop and the toilet overflowing, all that stuff. But the way y'all live your life is such a testimony of like just God's hand on a couple and how you honor God and how you serve the community. And that's why I'm like, y'all need to come be on this podcast. We're going to tell your story because people are going to hear your story and be inspired. And so I hope that helps you feel like relaxed to do this, because I remember Lydia being so nervous to do it the first time, and now she's been on the podcast like 3 times, and like she's also the one that talks about the hard conversations on the podcast now.
Like, we were talking about that the other day. Like, Lydia, you were getting vulnerable, getting deep on the podcast.
I know, because she's seen now like the power of telling your story, which I think that's so cool. You know, in Revelation, what talks about like the enemy will be defeated by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony, and testimonies are just so important. And so we're going to talk about so many things, but just on the testimony of y'all's relationship, tell us a little bit about how y'all started dating, because this story makes me laugh and it brings me back, because Christian and I were kind of there. Like we were seeing this all, because you and Bella were like very best friends. You still are. Y'all are sister-in-laws. But like I was getting a front row seat at this little relationship starting.
Yeah.
I think maybe you alluded to something to Kaylea or Bella. It was the longest thing that happened so quickly, or something along those lines.
So true, actually.
Such a long timeline of how everything happened.
That's so true. So we actually met. This is kind of crazy. So I was living in Sydney, Australia, doing some college. Madison was living in Dallas, working as an engineer. And we actually met on Christmas break. So I was home for the holidays, and so was he. And we have a mutual friend who I was getting dinner with, and he was like, hey, I'm bringing my friend Madison. And I thought it was a girl. And then he showed up. And then we started talking the whole night. It was like, we didn't even notice the friend. But then I had 6 more months in Australia. He went back to his job. Well, we didn't even know this, but we both moved back to West Monroe one day apart.
Wow.
One day
crazy.
apart.
Same weekend, yeah.
The same weekend.
That's crazy. So did y'all know that? Did y'all talk to each other?
Because I thought she was going to move to Dallas.
Yep.
You were looking at DBU at the time.
So were y'all talking during this time?
Occasionally, you'll comment on something on Instagram, something like that, but no real relationship.
Okay.
So then that was like
friendship.
July. He moves back. He starts taking a job at our church. And then I had moved back in July, but I didn't know what my next step was. And so in September, I got asked to preach at the church's youth group. And so he was serving in youth ministry. Okay. And so I was preaching, and then I just felt like the Lord's like, hey, if you don't know your next step, you need to serve while you're here. So I asked the youth pastor, can I like serve on the team, which morphed into an internship and then being an associate. So then we worked together, and then we just became really good friends for 3 years.
Yes, really good friends for 3 years. And that was kind of the blessing and the curse. That was like the good thing and the bad thing, because y'all were in, lack of a better word for it, y'all were in the friend zone.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, y'all were very much friends, but I don't want to tell y'all a story for you, but did y'all have feelings for each other in the friend zone?
There was that initial interest, but I can speak for myself that it was just kind of season that I wasn't ready for a relationship. I was going through a whole bunch of stuff, and we just kind of settled into that, hey, we're just good friends.
We actually went on a date.
Yeah.
So we did go on a date when I first moved back. We went on a date, and it was really good. Like, I was like very keen, very ready to like jump into a relationship. Like, oh, this is the guy for me. Like, I immediately was like,
You really felt
this
that,
is a guy I could marry. Like, we are so alike. We're good friends. We are in ministry. Like, this makes sense.
And
Like,
I was aloof.
yeah, and
Just
he
living my life.
was really just head down at work, serving. It wasn't really looking for a relationship. So he was interested, but then it was just like bad timing.
Yeah.
So then after that date, I mean, we work at the same church. We're still rubbing shoulders. So I guess let's just be friends. Like,
we were the two young people on staff that just kind of naturally gravitated towards each other.
Everybody would say stuff.
Yeah.
Our pastor would say stuff to him. People, I mean, y'all are saying stuff to me. Like, what about Madison? I'm like, oh, we're just friends. Or I kind of like him. He doesn't like me.
And those comments don't always help.
Yeah. Okay, so before we even go further in the story, I do have a question, because Christian and I are like really different, you know, but I see so much of us being alike too, but in ways that you don't see as obvious on the outside. Like when you said we're so much alike, when I look at y'all, I like y'all are so different, you know, like
Very.
like you're such an extrovert. Are you more introverted? I feel like
yes.
in some ways, like you have great conversations and stuff like that. You own a coffee shop, you got to be personable, but you're a little bit more reserved than you are.
Yes.
And then like, you know, I don't know, before, what job do you have? Like engineering?
Yeah.
And then you're like pastor, youth pastor. Like
on StrengthsFinder, ours are the opposite. Like my number top 5 strengths are his lowest. His top are my lowest.
Wow.
There's 32. Her number 1 is communication and woo. My 31 and 32 is communication and woo.
Like he has context really high. That's 30, 32. I'm like, I don't need to know the context. I'm jumping in. Like, let's go.
Context. That's so funny. I'm the same way though. Like my communication, I didn't even know context is one of them. So that shows that's probably not on my radar. But like, what was it about him that made you say like we're so much alike? Because whenever I tell people how me and Christian are like, they're like, oh, that makes sense, but it's not what you see like on paper.
It's our values.
Yeah,
like
that's exactly the same.
Like when I met Madison's like, wow, we have the same heart for ministry. The expression is different. The way we minister is different, but the same heart for the Lord, being sold out, want to go wherever he wants to go, do whatever he wants to do. And like our values, the way we think about, you know, family, the way we think about our friendships, the church. Like when we talk about the church, we have very similar like views.
Yeah, I love that. That's the same for me and Christian. It's our values. I always say it's like our conviction level and our values for things that are so similar that's what I was so attracted to and loved and connected with. And I think people should hear that because some people are looking like for themselves, you know, and you don't necessarily want that. Like I remember there was this one guy I talked to that was actually so similar to me. And I was like, this is not going to work. I don't actually want someone like me. I kind of love the fact that he's completely opposite. And even our strengths are so different because it really is so helpful because in the areas I need help with, he's strong in. The areas that he needs help with, I'm more strong in. So I see that in y'all's relationship too. So I know you saw the vision. You were like, we're going to
see where this is going.
You saw the vision and clearly you were right since y'all are married. You didn't quite see it yet. When you were in like that friend zone, Kaylea, though, talk about that a little bit. Like, because I remember that actually being a pretty hard time.
Yeah, because it was like after we went on that date, we were friends for a while. And I was kind of like, okay, we're just friends. People would bring Madison up. And I'd just be like, no, we're just friends. Well, then after a year of that and a year and a half of that, we're hanging out still just as much. Like we would go to dinner together on a Saturday night and just eat dinner.
I would like go to Jackson, Mississippi,
we would
which
go
is
on
like
a
couple
day trip.
hours away.
Yeah, we would go hang out, go shopping, and then come home. And like we never held hands. There was nothing romantic about our relationship. We would talk about life, our struggles, our like ministry life, things that we were facing. And it was just like a really deep friendship. And then I'm like, oh, I think I want more here. Like I could see myself marrying this person because one of my best friends told me before, like, marry the person that you could see yourself going to the grocery store with. The everyday mundane things. I'm like, well, that's what we're doing. Like, we're going to the grocery store. We're just hanging out. And so I think there was like a point in those 3 years where I was just kind of like frustrated with our friendship.
Yeah, I remember you were like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't. I think you actually invited her to Jackson or something. And I remember we were like, don't go. Like, I remember Christian was like, telling you because we were like, you need to like, he needs to like, what, like, feel like he can't have you, you know? And that's what Christian was trying to tell you.
Christian was giving me some advice.
Christian was like, you need to go get another man and make him jealous, which, you know, Christian was just trying to help a friend out. He was
from
like,
a guy's perspective, he's like, I'll tell you what to do.
I'll tell you what to do, and this is going to really get him, which is just really funny looking back because with Reeves and Lydia on, Christian was kind of in the same boat because Lydia like spilled out her feelings to us about Reeves, like how she didn't like him. And then we're telling Reeves like because he's in love with her. So somehow we were in both of these stories, which I love so much. But I just remember that time. Yes, it was hard. It was frustrating. We were like, okay, here's what maybe you should try to do or whatnot. But at the same time, like it's out of your control because it's up to you if you see that too.
Right.
Okay, so this is a good time to bring up just a question on just can guys and girls just be friends? Like, can you actually be best friends with the opposite sex and it not cause like problems, I guess, because you know how that's such a like question in the church. It's like everyone's like boundaries, but then sometimes that can go too far. But then it's like, yes, you actually can get hurt when you form a relationship with no boundaries in a guy and girl relationship. So what are y'all's thoughts on that hindsight? This time of year, it can be a major struggle to try to get the temperature in your bedroom just right. And without sleep, it can definitely have a big impact on your life and your health. If you're someone who wakes up during the night and you're way too hot or way too cold, then let's talk about Miracle Made sheets. Miracle sheets are designed to keep your body at the perfect temperature all night, helping you stay asleep and get the quality rest that you need to be at your best. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle sheets help regulate your body temperature so that you can say goodbye to waking up sweaty or shivering in the middle of the night. The silver infused into Miracle sheets also prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, so they stay fresher and cleaner 3 times longer than any other brands. Reducing bacteria in your bed can also help with clogged pores, fewer acne breakouts, all the things which you can sign us all up for. Plus, Miracle sheets are seriously comfy but won't break your budget like other luxury brands. So what is not to love here? Less breakouts, less laundry. You're not breaking the bank, y'all. These things are the best. I remember the first time we had our Miracle sheets on and me and Christian were like, okay, these are actually amazing. They are so soft, so comfy. And now we make sure that is the only sheets that we have on our bed because we love it so much. So go to trymiracle.com/whoa to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40% off. And if you use our promo code WHOA at checkout, you'll even get 3 free towels and save an extra 20% off. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/whoa and use the code WHOA to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/whoa to treat yourself today.
I feel like there's the evident like physical boundaries, which not just touching each other, but we never went to each other's house at night alone. That's good. So that was that. But the side that you don't really see is the emotional boundaries.
Yeah.
So I didn't really see or know, because I wasn't in that headspace, the emotional boundaries that was being crossed in her mind.
Wow.
So I'm just trucking along, have my friend with me. You know, we both work at the church and everything, and I'm not even thinking that because I'm not feeling that. So I feel like a lot of it is to have the open communication of like, hey, this may not be affecting you, but this is affecting me.
Yeah.
And I told him that.
And,
See, this is so good because I think from a guy's perspective, to be fair, I actually don't think that, like, sometimes you're like, oh, he knows. But I actually don't, like, sometimes I don't think he knows. Like, I don't think he realizes. And so that's so cool that you did share that. But how did you go about that?
So our college pastors at the time were encouraging me to, like, talk to Madison to kind of see where he was at. And so I just, like, remember one time we went for a walk around the church. And I was like, do you think that, like, our relationship is healthy? I don't know if you remember that. And I was like, do you feel like, you know, we need some emotional boundaries? Because I kind of feel like maybe this isn't healthy for us to be so close, like, if we're not going to be in a relationship.
And that kind of started, got the ball rolling, got some wheels turning stuff.
In your head, yeah. But I think that girls and guys can be friends, but I don't know what that looks like being best friends forever, because if you're best friends and you don't end up getting in a relationship and getting married, then that person's probably going to marry someone else and you can't continue being their best friend anymore if you're the opposite sex. That's not healthy.
I think that's the hard thing, because it's, yes, I think guys and girls should be friends. I think sometimes we put too much of a weirdness on it that then it's like, okay, like, this is weird and it shouldn't be. Like, we just need to be able to be friends with each other. And that's like, whenever my grandma tells stories about like her high school, I remember like they were just friends with so many guys and they'd go on dates with different people. And it wasn't weird. It was like, we're getting to know each other. So we had to get to know each other. So let's hang out. Whereas like for us in high school, if you go on like one date with someone and if you were to go on to the movies with someone else the next weekend, like that would be so wrong, you know?
Yes.
But like back in the day, they didn't put that like pressure on it. And so you could be friends, which I think that is a hard thing that we've created now, because that's why people like overthink going on a first date when it's like, you're not marrying the person. You got to get to know them, you know? So there is that whole thing. But then on the other side of it, it's like, okay, you do want to marry your best friend. Like that's the relationship that you want to build with someone that you're going to marry, that foundation, who you go to the grocery store with, who you want to tell all your things to, who you trust the most. And so if you form that with someone else of the opposite sex, and then eventually if they get with someone else, they start dating someone else, that can no longer be a thing, because that's what they have to form with that other person. Yep. And then it hurts you on the other end, or vice versa. Yep. You have to do it and it hurts them. So I think that's where it creates like an unhealthy thing when you cross over to like, they're your best friend. They're the person you call when you're, you know, excited about things or when you're sad about things. Like I think that's when it reaches that unhealthy boundary, because that should be reserved for your future spouse. Right. But you guys have a different story because it did form into that real relationship. So was it after y'all had that conversation that you started feeling different, or what was that timeline?
That did create a little bit of separation in us. It was a little awkward at first, but then we kind of settled into just cordial. You know, we were both still in each other's lives every single day. So we kind of,
but not as close.
But not as close. So I guess that disconnect did start to bring in like me being more open to the idea, or things like, what am I doing here? Yeah. But at the same time, I was in a season where I just couldn't really be in a relationship. So a lot of it didn't cross my mind to make those moves, because I was going through my own stuff, trying to figure my own stuff out instead of bringing someone else into it. So at that point, which was probably 2 years into the friendship.
Yeah, this is like the year before we got together. Yeah. And I had to guard my heart. The reason I'm having this conversation is like, you know, I'm hurting myself. Yeah. I'm so invested. And then other people are asking me on dates and I can't even give them the time of day because I'm like putting my life on hold for this friendship that's not even a relationship.
Yeah. Oh, that's so relatable to so many people.
To speak to the boundaries again of like, how do you have that healthy friendship relationship if you're like relying on that person to give you what someone in a relationship is giving you? That's like a sign of, hey, this boundary's being crossed.
That's so true. That is so true, because then you're stepping into a relationship and you're not in a relationship. You're expecting someone who doesn't need to give you anything.
I'm wanting him to give me the affirmation of my boyfriend, but we're just friends.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then I'm mad at him in our friendship.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yes. And I've seen that in so many other people's relationships as well. It's not just as I'm saying that to y'all. I'm like, as y'all are talking, I'm like, man, I can think of so many people that this is going to be so helpful for, because one, they can recognize, okay, I'm in that. And maybe if they do feel like I'm in that friend zone, how do I get out of it? Even if it's scary, because you do risk ending the relationship, I feel like you have to say something, because it's going to end anyways at some point, and you really are dragging out time, you know? Yep. And that's the thing where you're saying, like, I had other guys ask me on dates and I was saying no to it, and I was just kind of dragging out this time waiting on a friendship that he gave me no reason to believe is going to become anything else. Yep. And so as you were in that, Kaylea, like, what made you stay in that, like, hope for Madison? Did you just feel like it was going to happen?
Well, I guess staying in that hope for Madison was like, oh, I could just see this working. You know, we're so close. I love him as a person. I don't ever think that I was in love with you before we started dating. I think maybe I was in love.
Guarding your heart.
Yeah. I think maybe I was like in love with this idea of what we could be. But like, you know, I just loved you as a person. But after that conversation, when I kind of found out where you were at and just like emotional boundaries, and then we kind of shifted our relationship, I felt like I was doing better. I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't it. And I just kind of let go.
Yeah.
And like, I still love you as a person. You're my friend.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I'm going to move on and, you know, trust whatever God has for me. And then.
And you really kind of did.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's funny. It's like when you finally let go and you choose health, and then that's when the relationship comes knocking on the door.
Which is kind of like what Christian was saying. Like, if you don't seem like you need him or are desperate for him, and you back off and let it go, then it might make him want you more, you know. But you weren't like trying to do that. That's what you need to do anyways with what God was already doing in your life. Yeah. And then you were like, hold up, wait a minute. And so how did you come to her and have the conversation?
So it was in May, right? Yep.
Of 21.
Yep.
This is why it was, by the way, the longest, quickest thing ever, because it was in May, and then I think y'all were married by December.
Yeah, exactly.
7 months later. The number of perfection.
Yeah, so it was fast. It was fast.
So starting in like February, I started interviewing to take a job in Texas. Well, it was at the beginning of May that I was offered the job, and that's whenever I just kind of started thinking. I was like, well, okay, cool. I'm moving to Dallas, but like, what about Kaylee? And then I'm like, well, why am I thinking, what about Kaylee?
Okay,
what am I thinking that?
And literally the guy, he's like, so I just need to know, like, is it a yes or no? And I told him, I was like, there's this girl.
Wow. And you hadn't even told her this yet. Oh my gosh, I love it. This is like a movie.
And I originally thought about telling her. It was a Thursday night at Iron Cactus. And I told one of our pastors that, hey, I'm going to tell Kaylee just kind of how I feel, what I'm thinking. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. Well, we pull up and he's outside being weird about it. And it completely threw me off of my groove. So it messed it all up. But so the guy offered me the job. I told him, I was like, hey, there's this girl. I've got to at least tell her how I feel. If she says, okay, then I'm going to call you back and we'll work something out. If not, I'm coming to Dallas.
Wow.
So basically he's like, if she doesn't like me, I'm moving to Dallas.
Yep.
If she doesn't, I'm not going. If she
maybe
does,
she comes with me, maybe I'm not coming at all.
Wow, that's crazy. That is like a movie. Yeah. I love it so much.
It really was like a movie.
It really was. And I remember you calling me that day, being like, I have a boyfriend, Madison, and I are dating. Like, and we're like, what? Because it was like, for so long, and then you literally not gave up, but you surrendered it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, we're dating. And I think to the point of y'all's friendship though, it was how long you built your friendship that made y'all be able to step into marriage so soon, because y'all had such a foundation. Like you were ready. It just was a matter of like y'all committing, you know, and being like, okay, we're all in. Yep. Then you got married, and now here we are 3 years later.
Wild.
Which is absolutely amazing.
And that's something we said that night was like, so what do we do? Where do we go? And it was, we didn't have anything that we really needed to take slow, but we didn't really have to rush it. So it's like, we didn't have to figure out who each other were. We knew who each other were, but we knew that we had some navigations of figuring out this new season.
Yeah, for sure. One thing when I think about y'all's relationship is like, y'all have a lot of faith. Like y'all have faith for big things. Like y'all do so many big things. But it's Madison to the point of like, even on a job offer going, you know, I'm going to have the faith to say, if this girl works out, then I'm not going to take this job, which the job was more sure than this relationship, you know? And sometimes in life we have these offers that are more sure than the thing that we actually feel led to do. And that's where faith comes in. It's like, okay, I got to have confidence, things I hope for, and assurance in those things I cannot see. When that option seems a lot easier, but this one seems right. Yeah. I think in the same way, now you guys own a coffee shop, Corner Coffee, which we all love. Shout out to Corner. But like that was faith, because that was not like your passion. You're an engineer doing all these other things. What led y'all to start a coffee shop and you stepping out of a more sure job to do like a dream job? I know a lot of the times when we talk about pornography, the conversation is usually geared towards guys, but a study done nearly 10 years ago showed that 1 in 3 Christian women are struggling with it too. We know those numbers haven't gotten any better since then with the way our culture is going, and clearly this issue is a lot bigger than we think. But thanks to Covenant Eyes, no one has to struggle silently anymore. Covenant Eyes is happy to share a new resource made for women and by women as a way to help overcome porn addiction and start the journey towards healing. It's called Arise. It's a free 21-day video series from Covenant Eyes that's geared specifically towards Christian women. It's a safe and confidential community where your story and your struggle matter. Arise can help you find hope, freedom, understanding, and guidance. It will help you identify what your triggers are, explore past trauma that might be influencing your decisions, and understand how even your cycle can affect your relationship with pornography. If this is something you struggle with, you are not alone, friend. There is help, there is hope, and healing waiting for you. I think this is so amazing that they're doing this. You know, one time on our LO Sister app, we talked about pornography. One of our ambassadors opened up about it, and we were amazed how many women were like, thank you so much for saying something. This is not talked about in the church, and I struggle with this, and I needed to know I wasn't alone. This right here that Covenant Eyes is doing is a gift for you guys to know you're not alone, and they're going to help you walk it out so that you can start to walk towards freedom. Experience hope and freedom like never before with Arise. Get this resource completely free by scanning the QR code on your screen or visiting ariseforwomen.com. Again, that's ariseforwomen.com.
God thing as well.
Yeah. The way it all happened was God. But as soon as we got married, us both being in different areas of ministry at the church, I was in production, more behind the scenes. She was over youth, and I was trying all I could to be as all in, but we were just pulled in different directions. So we just knew that from the moment we got married that, hey, there's going to be a shift eventually to have a healthy rhythm with our life.
Yeah.
And
meaning you just both shouldn't be working in the same place kind of thing.
Yeah.
And not just we're working on the same team, because I think we can work together.
Right.
We both were leading 2 different departments at church. He was leading all of production, 3 locations. I'm leading the youth ministry, 3 locations.
Right.
And so now we're like doing our
That's
jobs,
a lot,
leading
yeah.
departments, but then we're trying to help each other. And like this is like, it's hard to also have boundaries with work when we're both leading departments and we're both.
And if we feel something at church, we're both feeling it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one of us. So if we're frustrated with something, we're both frustrated. If we're stressed out, we're both stressed out. So
Yeah, it just wasn't healthy
lot,
for
yeah.
both of us. And also,
blurry.
we were like newly married
Right.
when we got married, then 6 months later, we bought this coffee shop. So, I mean, like, this was a wild season.
Yeah.
We're figuring out how to be married. We're figuring out our jobs.
It was so
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, it was wild.
So what led to the coffee shop?
we knew that we wanted to do something that was in the community, because I had some other ideas of things I can do that was just more of a, just me having another job. But we wanted to do something in the community, and we've always kind of talked about, like, what if we did a coffee shop? And she joked that her dad said when she was a teenager or kid that one day I'll buy you corner coffee.
Wow.
And
That's crazy.
so it's just
so
kind of a
Preston.
joke,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
which has been around for 20 years. So it's not,
Kaylea and I met at Corner Coffee to talk about LO Worship like 5 years ago.
It's a special place.
crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
And so when we started having those conversations, I guess she snuck in and kind of mentioned to one of the managers about, like, would the owners ever want to sell this place? And
Yeah, I
she's
just said,
like,
if this place
"Nah."
ever goes for sale, like, put my name on the list. That's all I said.
Yeah.
And that was like December, January, something like that. And then we were at youth one Sunday night, and we were both off the next day. And we just were talking, like, maybe it's just time for us to kind of find that next step. Maybe it's time for me to end this season here on staff at the church. And we just had the thoughts, like, let's just go to Corner tomorrow and see if we wanted to, ask them about it. Because there's 2 options, buy Corner or start your own. And so when we walked in, this lady ran up to us and said, do y'all want to buy a coffee shop?
Wow.
And we were looking at each other like, yeah,
We just
do.
looked at each other, like, they came to us.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was like, let's just go in the morning, just scope out the place, dream about it. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. But
Wow.
we go, and then they offer it to us.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I think that's like when you're praying about something or believing something, like you're talking to the God who is also hearing everyone else's prayers, like
Yes.
connecting the
Right.
dots of like the whole body. So I think when someone else is like, I want to give this up, and you're praying for that, that's when like you walk into a moment, and what's it called? Like a kairos moment. It's like God's perfect timing when you're like,
Yes.
oh, I'm here dreaming about buying a coffee shop. You need me to buy a coffee shop. God's like, there you go. Like those are the
Yeah.
coolest life moments.
And the old owners were godly people, and they were in the same season of praying, like, how do we, because they're older and they're trying to retire. Like, how do we get out of this with the right people?
Yeah, because other people had made offers and they didn't feel right in their spirit about them. But like, they met us and immediately were like, these are the people.
Wow. How do y'all feel like, because I feel like y'all have taken corner and it's been such a like great gift to the community. Like you said, I want to do something for the community. Okay, so imagine for people listening, they might look at, okay, I am not in the space to buy a coffee shop, but I work at a coffee shop. Or maybe I am in the space to buy a coffee shop. You know, you went from like a job in ministry to a job in ministry. It's not in ministry, but it's ministry for the community. How do you do something like that with the intention for the glory of God and actually execute it? Like doing something like a coffee shop. Like, what are those intentional things y'all do with Corner that give glory to God? Because you feel it. Like when you're there, it's such a thing for the community. But like, what does that look like for y'all?
I think that part of the reason that led me to get out of churches, since I was so behind the scenes, I was craving that without really knowing or putting words to it, because I didn't have really much of the face-on-face interactions with the church people. So to have an avenue to where our ministry and our impacts people that are in the season of life where, similar to youth, they're trying to figure themselves out.
Yeah.
They're in transition. So we hire a lot of high school seniors in college age. So our ministry at church is the same demographic as our ministry in the public. Cool. So they went hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know, we have people who work for us who are not even believers. And like the way we treat them, we pray as like modeling Christ. And some of them have come to us and be like, we've never worked for anybody like you guys. And like, we've been able to show them the grace and the love of Jesus. And, you know, there's customers that we interact with every day who would never walk through the doors of a church, but they're going to meet us. And like, our prayer is that they would meet Jesus in us, in our interactions and our kindness. And I'm like, we've had customers of ours who've like, family members have died, and like we're getting to show up at their house and just love on them and just somehow be the hands and feet of Jesus. And you can do that anywhere.
Yeah. That's so true. And to like, I just think about even Maya, our friend who just had a baby, and like, what if she went in the hospital and a soluble from Corner Coffee? Like, you get to truly serve the community through highs and lows of life. And you guys do that with such intentionality. And I think it goes back to the desire to buy a coffee shop, even being something to serve the community. Like, it's that initial intention that you guys had on something, which I think for any job you have, you know, in life, what's your intention behind it? Because that's what's going to carry through if it has purpose or not, if it's meaningful or not, if it's impactful or not. Because you can have a coffee shop and serve coffee and it's good. You have a coffee shop that serves coffee and actually walks with people in life. And it's like, man, you got something so special and so different, to the point of like backing up to y'all both working at church and it feeling stressful because both your jobs carry so much weight and the lines are a little blurry. When you're stressed, that thing. Right. Now you guys have completely different jobs, but I have watched y'all balance them so well, in the sense that I've seen you step in at Corner and serve that coffee shop so much in the most random jobs at Corner that were needed. And I've seen you show up at youth time after time and serve Kaylea and the vision of that. And I've just watched y'all hold each other's things like so, I guess like you just held it like together. Like y'all have truly been a team in it, even though it's your thing. It's not even like that. It's like y'all's thing. How have y'all done that? Like, how have y'all done that well?
I think having clear expectations of like, hey, a couple weeks ago, we were in a live revival or summer revival. It's like, hey, we have Tuesday night through Friday night. We're going to have all day accounted for, knowing that it's a tough time for her at the church. So I have to show her grace on that. And then also, like, this is the first week back to school, or last week was first week back to school. It's a little bit busier in the mornings. So she needs to understand that there's going to be mornings that I'm not going to be able to be there with her. So having those clear expectations of like, hey, this is what expected for us this season, not every single day. That way she's not sitting there wondering why, like, hey, why aren't you spending time with me this morning or this week or next week?
I feel like y'all are such a good team in that. They're like when the coffee shop opened and you were like all in, but then like there's times where like it's revival and you're all in, and like you just carry each other's burdens really well. And I think like as a team, even Christian and I, Christian's job isn't to run LO. That's my job, but I couldn't do it without him holding up my shoulders and helping and doing all that stuff. And then my job is not to crush it in the workouts and run a men's fitness ministry. I would fail. But like I can support him and like at each day asking each other like, hey, how is your day today? What are the stresses that you got going on? And just like communicating and helping one another, sharing those things and holding one another up. Like it's such a gift, you know, to get to do life together, even though you're not doing it like together. Because you cannot have the same job, but still like do something as a teammate. Staying hydrated is a big deal, and unfortunately, lots of us have trouble keeping our bodies hydrated, especially in this hot Louisiana heat, y'all. It is so hot out there. You don't even have to be working out to be sweating, and that is where Element comes in. Element is a zero-sugar electrolyte drink mix with everything your body needs and nothing it doesn't. Sweating causes us to lose electrolytes like sodium, which are essential for tons of functions in our body. When those electrolytes aren't replaced, it leads to things like headaches, fatigue, muscle cramps, all the things you don't want. Every pack of Element delivers a meaningful dose of electrolytes without all the sugar, fillers, artificial colors, and shady ingredients found in other brands. Best of all, Element is designed to fit the hydration needs of anyone and everyone, even people following keto, low carb, or paleo lifestyles. Element is used by everyone from Olympic and professional athletes to U.S. Special Forces teams, gym buffs, and people just like me and you living our best lives. And now there's a new way to hydrate with Element Sparkling. I actually have a can right here. Look, it says stay salty, so cute. It is the same no sugar formula you already love, but in a 16-ounce can of sparkling water. It's a whole new way to give your body what it craves without sugary, stimulant-loaded drinks. Christian actually loves this drink because he, you know, drinks a lot of energy drinks and they're not great for you. And it's hard to cut that because whenever you love that, you're kind of like addicted to that taste. And this has a similar punch to it. Like it's salty, it tastes really good. The flavors are bold, but it's actually good for you. So I love that Christian's on this. I love them too. I love Element. I have been drinking Element for a long time. I rarely go anywhere without having an Element in my purse or my bag because you never know when you just need a little extra hydration. So right now, Element is offering a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packets free with any purchase, which is a great way to try all their flavors. And be sure to also try the new Element Sparkling, a bold 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water, and claim your free sample pack today. Visit drinkelement.com/whoa. That's drinkelement, drinklmnt.com/whoa.
That's so good, Sadie. And I think it goes back to just being a team because, like, if Madison loses, I lose too in marriage. Like, if I win but he lost, like, then we're still losing. But, like, we win together. Like, we want to see each other succeed. We want to lift each other up. Like, we want to help each other. Like, if Corner is struggling, I'm struggling too. If the youth is struggling, he's struggling too. So, like, how can we help each other win together? It's not like these things are competing against each other. These are our things.
Right.
Go ahead.
We were talking about this earlier of, you know, friendships, the foundation of a relationship. And whenever you're a friend, you're going to call your friend up. It's like, hey, I just need to vent, or I just need to cry. I need to whatever. And it's like we have grace for our friends that need that from us. But when we get home after a bad day, sometimes you have to be very intentional to not hold that against your spouse of like, well, you know, why are you coming in with a bad attitude? It
feels more personal. You know, it feels more personal. It's like, if they're bad, you're like, well, what did I, like, it's like, it feels like it's like, no, we're in this together. Like, I am your friend to sit here and to listen and stuff. And I think for Christian and I, one thing that helped us with that is like learning how to confess. And like, I know it sounds funny, but like just confession in marriage of like, when things are hard or when I've struggled or when it's this or that, or just like letting him see like the underlayer of why I'm reacting a certain way, that has like opened up the door for us to truly be a team, because now he understands like why I act the way that I act, or why I'm stressed the days that I'm stressed. Like it's not just like, oh, he's like defensive towards my reaction of the day. It's like, oh, I understand your reaction, you know? And I feel like that is like so helpful whenever you understand like you're on the same team, and to the point of like we win together, we lose together. We were kind of laughing about speeches that Kaylea and I had prepared. Like a speech I was going to give to Christian, then I backed out of it. And you had a speech for Madison that you backed out of at one point. And, you know, whenever I was going to like end the relationship with Christian, which is so funny because he didn't even know this. He didn't ever know I was trying to break up with him till I think we were married, and I was telling the story, and he was like, "You were breaking up with me?" I was like, well, I was going to, and then I backed out because what you said was so good. But I was thinking like this relationship just wasn't going to work because I thought I'm too busy. It's just not going to work. Like I'm going on tour. I'm not going to be able to be a good girlfriend to him. I'm not going to be able to show up to his things that I would like to. And it was just self-sabotaging. And I'm thinking I just got to end it. So I call him and I go on the spill of like, hey, like this is just going to be such a busy time. Like I'm going on tour and I'm not going to be able to show up for you. And I'm like going through it. And before I get to the punch, he's like, hold on. I just want to tell you, he's like, don't apologize for what God's doing in your life. Because I kept saying to him, I'm so sorry. I'm so busy. I'm so sorry. I'm going on tour. He's like, don't apologize for what God's doing in your life. That's amazing. He's like, hey, if it's a win for you and if it's a win for the kingdom, then it will always be a win for me. And I'm like, hold up.
I'm keeping you around.
I know. I'm like, that's amazing. Okay, forget what I was about to say. And I'm like, it's just going to be a busy season, but we're going to get through it together. And then I'm like in it, you know? And I mean, that has held so true in our relationship. I said that in our vows to one another when we got married, that if it's a win for you, if it's a win for the kingdom, it will be a win for me. But sometimes in life, in order for it to be a win for the other person, that you got to help make that happen. Because like they need a teammate. You need a teammate. I was thinking this the other day when this guy asked Christian and I both what our dreams are in life. And I, of course, have like 10 million dreams and I couldn't even nail it down to one. And then Christian's like, I haven't really thought about that a ton, but I want to be a faithful husband and a faithful dad. And I think Christian, like that is so him to his core. And sometimes people ask him like, what are you doing? And he has the for it minute. He's passionate about that. He loves that. And he does a great job at that. But at his core, he really does want to see me succeed in the things that God's put on my heart. He really does want to raise our family in those things. Yeah. And so him doing that well, it helps me win, helps us win together. And I think that's where in life you find as a spouse, like how to truly be a teammate. Yes. And I love that at the beginning of your relationship, y'all looked at each other and y'all's schedules and lives and said, this isn't going to work, you know? Because I think so many times people just try to plow through that. And like, well, this is what we know. And y'all were like, no, this is not going to work in the long run. And you took a leap of faith and look where you guys are now. Has Corner Coffee exceeded your expectations at where y'all are at?
Yes, it's been, I think there are, you know, stressful days and all that, but it's a lot more fun than we thought. Just because we get to be creative, we get to meet people. And I love that when we first got married, I couldn't go anywhere without someone knowing Kaylea because it's West Monroe and she went to West Monroe High School. I didn't.
Went to homecoming queen.
She was homecoming queen. I was literally thinking that. I was like, I can't bring that up again.
We have to bring your crown next time.
Yeah, but now it's like it really has made me feel like I'm more involved in the community, even more than being at a larger church in the community, because we go somewhere and I'll see just as many people I know from the coffee shop as Kaylea will. So it's really helped, not my value in the community, but just feeling like I'm in the community.
Yeah,
more.
we know more people from other churches too. Like we have I don't want to say this on the podcast, like older couples who come to Corner every day.
It's very diverse.
And like they are the sweetest people, and they go to like a smaller Baptist church, and like they are at the coffee shop. They hug us. They love us. We'll see them out other places, and like we would have never met them.
Yeah.
And less Corner, you know?
Yeah.
And I see so many Bible studies happening there and just like people meeting each other. And it really is like you guys have created a space that is just, it's going to be bigger than y'all. You know, it's a coffee shop and what it is, but it's so much more than that, which is so cool, which I love. Yeah. You guys really are an amazing couple. You walk in faith in so many ways. And I'm so thankful for y'all being on the podcast. It initially started with like, hey, let's talk about friends in the church? Like, can you be friends with the opposite sex, and what does that look like? And because I remember the whole friend zone thing for y'all, and
we'll never forget
I always
it.
kind of have like a thought when I'm like, I want them to be on to talk about this, but I knew it was going to be so much more because you guys have done so many things in your life, and we could keep talking about all the other things. But thank y'all for coming on. Thank you for braving a podcast studio and sharing your story, because it was such a beautiful story, and I think people are going to learn so much from it. And I'm thinking about the person on the other end of this podcast thinking like, that is so where I'm at. Like either you're in the friend zone and you need to have the conversation, or you have a sure opportunity for a job, but something's leading you another way. Like maybe this is just your encouragement to have a little faith and make sure that the move that you're making next is the one God has for you, and know that even if it doesn't seem as sure, if it's God, it'll be so much better.
Yes.
And I love how the girl worked out, the coffee shop worked out. If you're listening to the Lord and being led by Him, it's going to work out, friends. So thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing.
Thank you for having us, Sadie.